All right, let's begin the last installment of Work Guide 1 with our Latitude and Longitude lab. So you should be on slide 12 of 14 in the work guide. Page 75 is the beginning of this lab. I will backtrack us a little bit to introduce some fundamentals, but don't worry, I'll explain where we're going. Access points are here, critical. This is the access points I was referring to in the last video where I have the lines drawn out. Here is your access to the classwork section of Google Classroom. When you click this, it will bring you to this page here where you can click the latitude, longitude. Then you can click your assignment and you will have your report sheet available here. Notice how I have some specific information and broken down boxes for you to enter your information in with directions for you to complete this. All right, let's get back at it. So page 75 is actually not where I want you to go first. Where I'd like you to go first is going to be page 52. I want to take on this little section here just to kind of give us an introduction into what I'm going to talk about on page 3 of the reference tables so that you can get extremely accurate with your latitude and longitude values for answers on the map. All right, so if we take our initial grid of latitude lines, or they could be longitude lines, I'm just choosing to use latitude in this case. If we were to take this one line of distance on the map and we were to zoom in, okay, we could take that 1 degree and break it down into 60 slices, like 60 slices of bread. And each one of those pieces of bread would be called a minute. So there are 60 slices, 60 minutes of distance. And we say minutes because when we talk about rotation of the Earth, we tend to refer to degrees with time. So we use time units to help us describe distance that we are rotating. So as we break down 1 degree into 60 minutes, 1 minute of distance on our map can be broken down into 60 seconds of distance. And if you want to, you can see how we've zoomed even more in. You may notice that on things like Google, you might get a value of like 45.2357892, and it's like 10 decimal places. That is getting your accuracy of latitude, longitude down to like 6 inches to a foot. Okay, so GPS is much more accurate, but we're talking about the foundations of what GPS uses. So let's talk about an analogy. If you've ever seen those wooden dolls that open up and they get smaller and smaller and smaller, think of it like that, where we are opening up and finding smaller versions of distance called minutes within our degree. Then we have smaller versions of our minute, and each slice is called a second. And there's 60 of them here, and we can then single out those seconds individually. Okay? So we will always write, if we need to, degrees, minutes, seconds, then a compass symbol at the end. So now let's jump into our access point. Let's jump into this map and talk a little bit more about how minutes and seconds work. So here I have my latitude lines. I have 42 degrees north, 43 degrees north, which I've labeled on the opposite side of this map. Now, if I were to see a point, and I've labeled it with this green X, this point sits about halfway in between 42 degrees and 43 degrees. And in this 1 degree, we could slice this up into 60 slices. And each of those slices is 1 minute. So if I were to count the number of slices up to about this point here, we're about halfway between 60 minutes, which is why it's 42 degrees, 30 minutes north. So this section is about half of the 60. So that's why we give it 30 minutes north. If we were to try to figure out this area here, in between 42 degrees north and 42 degrees 30 minutes north, we would say that this is about half of the 30 minutes. So this would be 42 degrees 15 minutes north. Let's go a step further. Maybe we're here, so we're between 30 and 60 minutes. which is the new degree, and half of that 30, we have to add 15 minutes from 30 to here. So we would end up with 42 degrees, 45 minutes north. Makes sense. It's going to get trickier the closer you get to a full degree. So if this is 45 minutes, this is really close. So you might want to say something like it's 55 minutes north with a 42 degrees in front of it. So just realize that these areas in between, do not ignore that they have value. You may have to approximate somewhere on the scale what it is in value. For this map, it doesn't get any smaller than minutes. We don't use seconds in this one. The map would have to be zoomed in more, which we will eventually see when we get to topography in our transitional unit next. All right, the same thing works just like it does for longitude. So if this is 78 degrees west and this is 79 degrees west, notice we're counting up in the west direction. So all these longitudes, all these blue lines are going to get a west symbol. All right, so 78 degrees here is about halfway between 78 degrees, 0 minutes, and 78 degrees, 30 minutes west. So this would be about 78 degrees, 15 minutes west. If you need to rewind and watch this again and apply this on your own. But you will need to be specific within about 5 minutes for certain cities. So let's talk about how we're going to record and where it's going to be recorded. So jump into those access points. I've given you the first 6 steps. These are your notes. This has already been done for you here with all the lines drawn. So really your first step is to realize, what format do I need you to write things in? Well, I need you to write things in this format, where you have a value with a degree symbol, the appropriate value, and a minutes with the appropriate minute symbol. Make sure that this number it's not always 30. You will have to estimate, and make sure that if you're doing a latitude line, you're giving me a north, mainly because, let me point that out too, we're counting or increasing our value in the north direction. So that's why these latitudes get a north. So what you'll see is each of these come with their own access points. Yes, it looks a little messy, but what I've tried to do is create borders. So this one goes with question 7. This arrow goes with question 8. This arrow also explains that you have to do the same thing for question 9. Here is question 10. Here is for question 11. Question 12. Question 11 and 12 are going to be a little tricky. I want you to try to do those on your own rather than showing it to you. Here, in your report page, you're just going to highlight one or the other. You'll see when you're on the report page. This tells you to do the same access point as number 9. This is telling you an area that you might want to focus your attention on to answer that. Same thing. Same thing. Same thing. And then we get into time zone practice. Yes, I will be asking to see some of your work. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have broken down an example for you where you can tell me that you're subtracting, you're then dividing two values. You're getting a response, and you can tell me whether you're adding or subtracting because you're going east or west. Here's an example of that. And then there are 2 bonus questions. Utilize the access points, rewind this video, check out the old videos. You can check in with us, you can check in maybe with a neighbor, and I think you'll do just fine. Give it the best you can. Good luck. See you soon.